地を踏みしめて君は目覚めてゆく天使の微笑みで連れ出して孤独でも一人じゃないさ生まれてきたことに必ず意味がある You can smile again 太陽浴びて You can fly away 世界は君の輝きを待ってる大地を踏みしめて君は目覚めてゆく天使の微笑みで連れ出して始まりはいつでも遅くないさ何度でも立ち上が
れ This is episode 1 of the MultiMangaverse. Welcome to it. My name is Alan, hoping that you're doing well whenever you're listening to this, wherever you are in the world. It has been a while since I've recorded anything comic book related. A lot of things were happening in the real world, one of them being we almost had to move earlier on this year, but we worked things out with the landlord, so for now we're staying put. And then in May and in June I caught a nasty bug and that put me out of action for a number of weeks. Couldn't get anything done. But the good news is I've recovered now. I'm back to 100%, so we can get back to business. Now, just before we get started, I just wanted to let those of you who've been waiting for episode 2 of the audio adventures of Tintin, that's coming. The next release that I do will be Tintin. What's delaying me is that for this particular volume that I'm reading, Tintin in the Congo, there are 2 versions that I wanted to read. There's the original, black and white, and then there's the redrawn, colored version from the 40s. So I wanted to read both, get my notes done, and then at least let you know what the differences were between the 2 titles. Some changes were made in that colored version. No surprise, because Tintin in the Congo has not been looked at very, very kindly, because the way the local Congolese were portrayed in the original has not been very good. So just please hold on for that episode. But while you're waiting, let me introduce you to this series, the MultiMangaverse, a spin-off to the comic book series that I've wanted to do, but I hadn't figured out a good schedule for this. But I figured out one. The idea being that it'll be weekly if all goes well, unlike the comic book series, which will remain monthly. It'll be weekly because what I'm looking at is each week I'd like to read a volume of a manga, get my notes ready, and then record the episode. So under normal circumstances, there should be 4 episodes coming out each month. Like the comic book series, I'll be looking at 2 manga titles at a time. The first one being what we're looking at today, hunterxhunter, aka hunterxhunter. No idea why the X is silent, but hunterxhunter. Then the second manga title, I'm going to keep that one a surprise. That one, I think you might like that one. So look forward to that one. And then the first 4 episodes will be hunterxhunter. Then the next 4 will be the other title. Then we switch back to Hunter X for the next 4. We go on like that. So hunterxhunter. What is Hunter X? It is a Japanese manga created by Yoshihiro Togashi that has been published in the magazine Weekly Shonen Jump since March of 1998. If you want action, you want adventure, you want a main character that just captures you from the first chapter, this is hunterxhunter. And for me, It is one of my 3 favorite manga of all time. It was number 2 for some time, but I picked up another title and that one captured the number 2 spot. So number 3 still goes to Hunter x Hunter. Now, it's not Togashi's first series. No, he is well known for another major battle manga. You might have heard of it, Yu Yu Hakusho. If you think of tournament story arcs, one of the titles that should come to mind is Yu Yu Hakusho. And Togashi is also famous for his wife. His wife, Naoko Takeuchi, is the creator of Sailor Moon. Maybe some of you read the manga or you watched the anime back in the 90s. So that's Togashi for you there. Now, Volume 1 of Hunter x Hunter was released by Shueisha, the company in charge of Weekly Shonen Jump, on the 4th of June 1998 in Japan. And then the English version would be released by Viz Media on the 5th of April 2005. Volume 1 contains the first 8 chapters of Hunter x Hunter and kicks off the first story arc of the series, the Hunter Exam. So, like with the comic book series, we'll go through the plot of like each chapter, and then at the end we'll give an overall review of the volume. And my hope is by the time we get to the end, you can decide whether is Hunter x Hunter for you. Do you want to dive into this series and join me for volume 2? So let's get started. Chapter 1, The Day of Departure, which is also the title of volume 1. It begins on Whale Island, the home of our protagonist, 12-year-old Gon Freaks. Yes, Gon Freaks. Not Freakz, but Freeccs. No, you cannot be the protagonist of a major manga without a surname that makes people do a double take. But yeah, that's Gon Freaks for you. He's out fishing in a swamp, and he succeeds in reeling in a massive fish known as the Master of the Swamp. Once he's got his fish, Gon hurries back into town to deliver the fish, much to the surprise of the locals, because 5 men have tried to capture this Master of the Swamp and they failed. But here comes this 12-year-old boy. He's got the Master of the Swamp, and one of the locals who sees Gon is his aunt Mito. And we find out that Gon had made a deal with Aunt Mito at some point before chapter 1, which involves Gon capturing the fish in exchange for Mito giving her consent to let Gon apply for the Hunter exam. And Gon has held up his part of the deal, so she reluctantly signs the application form that Gon is holding up to her, and then he hurries off to send it through the mail. Now, hunters in the universe of Hunter x Hunter, these are well-known individuals who go out into the world in search of mythical creatures, or to seek out lost treasure, or to discover new places. And Mito is not happy about Gon wanting to become a hunter, because Gon's father, Ging Freaks, Ging, is it Ging Freaks? It's also pronounced Jin, but I'll be going with Ging Freaks. He's also Mito's cousin. He's a famous hunter, and Mito has kept information about Jing from Gon. But Gon, as it turns out, he found out about his dad ages ago, and we get a flashback to 3 years earlier, where we see Gon has ended up in a forest on the island, and it's the birthing season of a ferocious beast known as a fox bear, and Gon has encountered a mother fox bear and her cub, and would have certainly been killed by the mother if he had not been rescued by a young man who shows up named Kite, Kite, or Kaito in Japan. We'll go with his Japanese name, Kaito. Kaito he kills the mother fox bear and is about to kill the cub. But Gon steps in and says, no, I'll keep the cub and I'll raise it. And Kaito, he warns Gon that, we've just killed the mother. This cub might grow feral and might attack Gon. But then Kaito, he sees that Gon is determined to keep the cub. And then he realizes, wait a minute, Gon looks very familiar, and Kaito recognizes that Gon is Jing's son, because they both have, a determined look in their eyes, and Kaito, he recognizes it. And then at some time, Kaito reveals himself to be a hunter, and Jing is his teacher. So Kaito tells Gon that he's on Whale Island because this is Jing's birthplace. He's searching for Jing as part of a final test for Kaito to earn Jing's approval. And he believes that Jing is alive and understands why Aunt Mito would not tell Gon about his father. It's because she just wants to protect him. But Kaito can tell that, like father, like son, Gon can already, he's got the makings of a fine hunter, because great hunters are good with animals. And we fast forward back to the present, where we see Gon is hanging out with the grown-up fox bear cub, which has become his pet friend Kon, Kon. It's Kon. And Gon is with Kon, and he's telling his friend that, I want to become a hunter, and I'm ready now to leave. And so he wishes Kon all the best with since he's going to be staying behind on Whale Island. He's going to look after his friends and look after the forest, while Gon goes on to become aspiring to become a hunter. Also, what we see, Gon is holding a unique looking card. This card is a hunter license, and we learn that Kaito, as he was fighting the mother fox bear, he dropped the license. Gon picked it up, and he's been holding on to it ever since that day. And I'm guessing, hopefully, perhaps if he can find Kaito again and give him back the hunter license. So Gon goes back home and tells Aunt Mito that he knew all along about his father, and he doesn't hold anything against her for not telling him the truth. But he understands, because being a hunter is not for everyone. It's a tough job. And once you become a hunter, even family no longer takes top priority. So he understands why she kept this information away from him. And eventually, she apologizes to him for not telling him about his father, about being a hunter and everything, but everything is fine between them. And she asks him when is Gon leaving for the hunter exam, and he says next week. And we fast forward to next week. We see Gon. He's got everything, his gear is ready, his signature outfit, the green shirt, the green shorts, the green boots. He's got his yellow satchel and his fishing pole. That's his weapon. He's at the harbor with Aunt Mito, who's there to see him off. And he tells her, when I come back, I will be a great hunter. And he boards a ship which is going to the hunter exam location. As he's boarding the ship, one of the passengers heard Gon speaking to his aunt, and he finds it really ridiculous. There's a 12-year-old who's aspiring to become a hunter. And he points out to the other passengers, some grown men, they are also aspiring to become hunters. And this passenger tells Gon that, you're just another hopeful applying for the exam. Very few apply for the exam. So the chances of you coming back as a great hunter, that's pretty ridiculous. But Gon is unfazed. He's on the boat now. And as the ship is leaving at the end of the chapter, the captain, his final words as the chapter ends are, it's going to get rough. That's where chapter 1 ends. And chapter 2 begins, an encounter in the storm. And sure enough, It's not smooth sailing. The ship has been caught in a terrible thunderstorm for the first couple of pages, and once the storm passes and you think everything is fine now that the storm has passed, but many of the passengers have become seasick. The same tough guys who were making fun of Gon, here they are in the sick bay, seasick, unhappy, but there are a couple of passengers who are still fine. One of them is Gon, the 12-year-old kid, and surprise, surprise, he's the one going around looking after these sick passengers, giving them fresh water and some herbal medicine. And the captain, seeing this, he's impressed. And sometime later, he sees Gon, he's on the deck, and Gon tells the captain that the ship is headed for another storm. They are about 3 hours away from it, much to the surprise of the captain. And he has a good look at Gon, and he realizes, this kid reminds me of someone. That someone being Jing Freaks, Gon's father. And so the captain decides, okay, this kid is planning to become a hunter. Let me at least teach him a few things. One of them being how to operate the ship. Because, if he's going to become a hunter, he might as well become versatile in the skills department, learn a few things. And while he's teaching Gon how to operate the ship, the other passengers are told over the speakers about the storm that's coming. And now would be a good time for anyone to exit the ship, head for the lifeboats, and get to the nearest island. If you're not strong enough to stay behind and continue on this trip. And surprise, surprise, except for 3 passengers, everyone else hightails it. They get on the lifeboats and they leave. The same tough guys from the first chapter who were aspiring to become hunters, there they are on the lifeboats, leaving the ship. The 3 people who remain on the ship, it's Gon, and this fellow who's wearing a suit looking smart named Leorio, and another boy, a blonde-haired boy named Kurapika. So the captain meets with the 3 passengers and he asks them why do they want to become hunters. And Gon gives his reason. He wants to become a hunter simply following the footsteps of his father. Leorio, this man, he doesn't think it's any of the captain's business, so he doesn't say anything. And Kurapika says, I don't know you, he says to the captain. So instead of coming up with some lie about why he wants to become a hunter, he chooses not to tell him the truth. And this is when the captain reveals to the 3 that the hunter exam has begun now. And all those people who have abandoned the ship, they failed. If they were to reach the site of the hunter exam by any other way, they'll be turned away. The Hunter Association hires people like the captain to screen the number of people who apply for the exam and to cut down the number. So if these 3 passengers, Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika, won't tell him why they want to become hunters, they might as well get off the ship. So now Kurapika and Leorio, they go into the reasons why they want to become hunters. Kurapika explains that he is the last member of a clan known as the Kuruta clan, or the Kurta clan, in English Kuruta being Kuruta. Kurapika wants to become a hunter to track down a criminal group known as the Phantom Troop, also known as the Phantom Brigade or Spider. Now, the Phantom Troop, they killed Kurapika's clansmen, and the type of hunter that Kurapika is aiming to become is called a blacklist hunter, while the Phantom Troop have been labeled as a Class A bounty that have eliminated many skilled hunters who have tried to go after them. So it's a quest for vengeance as far as Kurapika is concerned. As for Leorio, the only reason why he wants to become a hunter is money. Simple as that. Cash money. He has to become a hunter. He's not really impressed about Kurapika's quest for vengeance. He doesn't think you need to become a hunter just to go on this quest for revenge. But Kurapika explains that being a hunter grants you access to information, and it affords you liberty to perform actions that normal people cannot, such as going after an infamous gang like the Phantom Troop. And for Kurapika, he looks down on Leorio for becoming a hunter simply for money, compared to why he wants to become a hunter. You want to become a hunter for money, that's pretty low brow, And Leorio takes offense to this, and he says, you know what, I don't like you, boy. Let's take it outside, let's duke it out. And they decide to step outside of the cabin where they've been meeting. And outside, that storm that Gon was warning about earlier on, they're in the storm now. And these two guys, they want to fight outside during this storm. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, as they're about to fight, one of the sailors, named Katsuo, he almost goes overboard because of the strong winds of the storm. But Gon, he steps out just in time to catch Katsuo before he goes overboard. But he's about to go overboard himself, and this is where Leorio and Kurapika, they work together to catch Gon and bring back Katsuo, and they save him. And they start shouting at Gon, telling him, oh, you almost got yourself killed, what were you thinking? And Gon simply tells them, yeah, I would have died, but thanks to you two, I was saved. And Leorio and Kurapika, they look at each other and they decide to settle aside their differences, and they become friends. They become friends with Gon as well. The captain is pleased by this, and he says, okay, these three are good people. I'm going to take them to the port where the hunter exam is going to be taking place. That's how chapter 2 ends. And chapter 3, the ultimate choice, begins with Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio. They arrive at a place called Do Harbor, and Leorio, he suggests that they catch a bus to another location called Zaban City. The captain has a chance to talk to Gon a bit before he leaves. He tells Gon that at the top of a hill in the distance, there is a very tall pine tree. And he suggests to Gon that he can start searching for the hunter exam, the exam hall for where the hunter exam is going to be held. He can start searching for it from the top of that hill. Gon thanks him for the advice, and he starts heading towards that tall tree in the distance. Kurapika, he goes with Gon, and Leorio, who still wanted to go to Zaban City by bus, he decides, I'm going to go to the bus terminal and wait for that bus. As he's waiting for the bus, he overhears a conversation between two people, which reveals that none of the buses even reached Zaban City. Turns out it was a trap to weed out more exam applicants. And after hearing this, Leorio, he decides, okay, fine. He chases after Gon and Kurapika, and three of them are making their way to that tree on top of the hill. By early evening, they have reached what appears to be an abandoned town. But Gon and Kurapika, they can tell that it is still occupied by people who are simply hiding their presence. And soon enough, a crowd of people arrives surrounding them. They are led by an old lady who proceeds to announce that it is time for the two-choice quiz. And before the three applicants, Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika, can get to the pine tree, they have to make it through this town and correctly answer the question that the old lady has for them. One question for all three of them. They must answer either option 1 or option 2, and they have only 5 seconds to give their answer. Should they get the question wrong, they fail and they cannot continue to the exam. So, the three of them, they go over what the lady has said to them. And as they're, trying to figure out what to do next, another applicant arrives. and asks if he can, get the first attempt at answering the question. This applicant is a man named Matthew, and Leorio figures this could be a chance to see what this question, how it's structured. So he's okay with Matthew going first. But as for Matthew, he's got ulterior motives. He's thinking, okay, once I get ahead, I'm going to set some traps for these three. So it's good that they let him go first. And the lady asks him the question. Rogues have taken your mother and your true love hostage. You may only rescue one. Which do you save? Option 1, your mother. Option 2, your true love. Now, Kurapika is quick to notice that this question is very subjective because both options could count as a correct answer. But Matthew, he thinks the question over for a moment and then responds with option 1. Although he says he would have chosen option 2, but he believes option 1 is the answer that the old lady prefers. And she asks him, what's your reason for choosing option 1? And he says that true loves can be replaced, but a person's mother you cannot replace. So the old lady thinks over Matthew's answer. She talks to the crowd of people and they deliberate over his answer. And then she turns back to Matthew and says, you may go. And this really annoys Leorio because as far as he's concerned, there isn't a real correct answer to the question. And he's about to leave and protest, aiming to go via another route. But the old lady stops him and she tells him that there isn't another route. You either answer the question or you fail. And then she notices that Kurapika is heard something. And all of a sudden the lady now urges the three of them to choose either to take the quiz or not. Kurapika chooses for his friends and says, okay, we'll take the quiz. And he reveals to Gon and Leorio that there's a trick to this. It's not about the questions, it's about what they hear and don't hear. And the old lady proceeds to ask them a new question. Your son and daughter have been kidnapped. You can only get one back. Which will you get back? Option 1, your daughter. Option 2, your son. And then the 5-second countdown begins. Leorio has had enough. And now he wants to attack the old woman, but Kurapika stops him. And he tells Leorio, calm down. We've passed the test. The correct response is not to give a response. Neither option 1 or 2 is the correct choice. And even though the old lady said they could only say option 1 or 2, she didn't say that they had to say anything. And Leorio points out that, wait a minute, the old lady just told Matthew to go through, and Kurapika says to Leorio that she just told him to go without saying that he was correct. And what Kurapika heard moments before that the old lady had noticed, it was someone screaming in the distance, somewhere beyond town. And that scream was probably Matthew, and he must have encountered one of the dangerous creatures living outside town. So there you go, Matthew out of the game. And the old lady is impressed that these three, they got the correct answer. They got things correct, and she reveals the real path which leads to the tree, the pine tree hill. It's just a straight passage which will take them about 2 hours to get through. And while this is going on, Gon, all this time, he's been trying to figure out the answer to the quiz, but he gives up and says, I couldn't find the correct answer. And for Gon and Kurapika and Leorio, they find this amusing and they just tell him, Gon, the quiz is over. We've passed. But then Gon asks them, what will they do if there comes a time when they have to make a choice like this? There won't be a correct answer. And at the end of the day, it will be about what's more important will be about what's true in someone's heart. And for the old lady who has, heard Gon saying this, she realizes that Gon has identified the real aim of this test. What's abstract now may be cruel reality later. One must be ready for such crossroads in life. This quote is the last line from the old lady as the chapter comes to an end. And then chapter 4, Kiriko, Wicked Magical Vulpes, or Vulps, Vulps. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. That's the title for chapter 4. Begins, we see the trio, they are in a forest, and night has fallen. So much for reaching that pine tree. They were supposed to reach it in 2 hours, but as far as Leorio is concerned, he thinks they've been traveling for at least 4 hours. There are signposts that they've been seeing along the way which are warning travelers to be aware of magical beasts. And we get a little flashback where the old lady has told them that at the base of the pine tree hill there's a house in which a couple lives. This couple, they are navigators who will assist the trio and lead them to the exam hall if they can make a good impression. And in this chapter, we also learn that the hunter exam is held at different places each year, and without the help of a navigator, an applicant will not make it to the exam hall. The path to the exam hall is deliberately strewn with traps in order to whittle down the number of applicants. So this exam, really, only a few people are expected to get through it. Very crazy. So the trio, they arrive at the house, and at first they knock. There's no answer. Maybe nobody's home. Then they enter the house and they find the couple, and the woman is being held captive by a fox-like magical beast, and near them is her husband. He's injured on the floor, and Gon and his friends, they try to engage the magical beast, but it bolts out of the house, still holding the woman. Gon and Kurapika, they chase after the magical beast, while Leorio, he stays behind to tend to the woman's husband. And we follow Gon chasing after the magical beast. He's able to keep track with it, and eventually he catches up to it and he clobbers it over the head with his fishing rod, and it lets go of the woman, who gets caught by Kurapika as Gon chases after the magical beast. Fortunately, the woman isn't hurt, but Kurapika notices there are unique tattoos on the woman's face, on her wrist, and he figures out something about her. But before he can say anything about that, Leorio suddenly appears, to the surprise of Kurapika, and he asks Leorio, what about the woman's husband? How is he doing? And Leorio simply says, oh, he's okay, nothing serious. And all of a sudden, Kurapika strikes Leorio, and it reveals that Leorio is in fact a magical beast that had shapeshifted. And this lucky hit by Kurapika, it wasn't because he figured out that the magical beast was in disguise, but he just didn't like the idea of Leorio leaving behind an injured man just to come out here. And this magical beast, upon its disguise being ruined, it flees, and Kurapika is left with the woman, and he asks her, who are you? And at first the woman, she's surprised that he would ask her this, and she doesn't give a response. Instead, her facial expression just changes all of a sudden. She's just giving a smirk all of a sudden, without any answer to Kurapika's question. Then the scene changes. We catch up with Gon. He's found the magical beast in a clearing. He tries to attack him, but stops all of a sudden when Gon simply introduces himself. Hi, my name is Gon, and he asks for the magical beast's name, because Gon has noticed that this isn't the same magical beast that he was chasing before. This one has a different face, and its voice has a higher pitch. And to the beast, this is highly amusing, and all of a sudden it calls out to the other magical beast, who turns out to be her husband. And we fast forward now, we find out that the woman and the man, the supposed navigators, are the children of these two magical beasts, which are known as Kiriko, Kiriko, and they are the navigators. And it has been a while since anyone has figured this out, until Gon just now. The woman is a Sumi woman, S-U-M-I. Sumi, in Japanese, the word Sumi can also mean ink. And the tattoos that the Kurapika saw are proof of the woman's betrothal to God and a vow of chastity. Sumi in Japanese is another word for ink, and it might be a play on the tattoos that she's got. These are very unique symbols because very few today, people like Kurapika, can identify them, so she's very impressed by this. As for her brother, the man who was at the house, he reveals that Leorio, although he didn't figure out his identity, but he demonstrated some high quality first aid skills. He was able to look after him and take care of him, and for this he was impressed by Leorio. As for Gon, he displayed his natural gifts of amazing agility and perception, and all these for the magical beast, the Kiriko. This is enough for the three of them to move on and pass, and they'll gladly transport Gon and his friends to the location of the exam hall. So the chapter ends with Gon and his friends being transported out of the forest. Chapter 5, the first phase begins. Part 1. It starts off with the trio. They've made it to Zaban City, and they're being guided by another Kiriko to an address, 2510 Tsubashi Street, which is a massive building that the trio, when they see it, they think, okay, that's the exam hall. Until the Kiriko points to a much smaller building next door, a restaurant. And Leorio, he can't believe, you mean to tell me that that restaurant, that's where the exam applicants are meeting, that small place? And the Kiriko just tells him, why would people gather in a place so obvious as that massive building? It's that place next door. So they enter the restaurant. The Kiriko orders a particular meal, a steak combo, which is grilled over a low flame. And this signal assures one of the staff members that, okay, this Kiriko is here for something else other than, he's not a regular. So he points them to a special room just on the other side of the restaurant. And this is where the Kiriko, he bids Gon and his friends farewell. And he says, I'm impressed that you three, you are first time exam takers. You made it this far. So congratulations. All the best luck to you. And as he exits the room, he turns a dial on the side of the wall. The room turns out to be an elevator lift, and it starts descending below ground. And while the elevator lift is descending, Gon and his friends, they are left to enjoy the special steak combo meal that the Kiriko had ordered for them. And this is where Kurapika shares some information that he learned, that on average, every 3 years, one lucky person succeeds during their first attempt of the hunter exam. Many applicants either succumb to the pressure of the test or are beaten down by veteran applicants to the point where they don't try applying for the exam ever again. And for Gon, he asks, why do so many people go through all this just to become a hunter? And Leorio and Kurapika, they each give their reasons why being a hunter is so important. Fully qualified exams are given the hunter license. And according to Leorio, it works as well as a passport, granting the holder entry into most countries, access to all public resources. And out of the 100 most richest people in the world, 60 of them are hunters. And if you ever sold that hunter license, you'd make enough money for 7 generations of your family to live in relative comfort. That card that Kaito dropped 3 years ago while fighting the fox bear, that card that Gon picked up and has been holding, you sell it. 7 generations of your family living in relative comfort. Unbelievable. As for Kurapika though, he says a hunter protects nature, wildlife, human society, preserving important artifacts, as well as going after criminals. That's what he believes a hunter should be doing. So, what does a hunter mean for Gon after hearing all this? But before he gives his answer, the elevator has reached the 100th basement floor. The 3 friends, they finish their meal, they leave the lift, and they step out into a wide tunnel which is filled with other hunter exam applicants. There are many unfamiliar places, but for those of you who are long-time fans of hunterxhunter, there's a double spread in this chapter where you will recognize one important character. Hisoka is in the crowd. And these other applicants, they see the trio for a moment and then they turn back to doing whatever they were doing, minding their own business. But Kurapika is aware that all these people who are gathered, these are the real lucky ones. 1 in 10,000, just like him, just like Gon, just like Leorio. And these people, they are experts in whatever field that they come from. They made it this far. And one of the applicants, he comes to the trio. He's a middle-aged man named Tonpa. And he tells them that now there are 405 people who are here. He's the 16th applicant. He's like, there's a badge on his chest which indicates his number 16. And an attendant shows up. He gives Leorio his badge, number 403. Gives Kurapika his badge, number 404, and Gon, number 405. And Tonpa says he's been trying out the exam since he was 10 years old. This is his 35th attempt. 35th. And so now that Gon and his friends are here, Tonpa decides, okay, let me show you the other regular applicants who are around here. We see a man named Bobon, applicant number 103. He's a snake charmer. There's a martial artist named Cherry. He's number 76. There's Todo, Todo, number 255. This big man who's a wrestler, well known for his brains. Then there's a trio of applicants, numbers 197 to 199. These are the Amori brothers. And then there's also Gereta, number 384, a huntsman skilled with clubs and blow darts. As Tonpa continues, there's a scream close by, and everyone looks around to see what's going on. Applicant number 58. We see him, he's just had both of his arms sliced off from just above the elbow. Clean cuts. And who could have done this? What's going on? And this has been done by applicant number 44, the man who was in the crowd, Hisoka, the magician. And Tonpa says that, this Hisoka guy, he says that wouldn't have made it he made it last year, but he was disqualified for attacking an examiner simply because Hisoka didn't like them. And it also turns out that Hisoka took out 20 other examinees last year as well. Dangerous dude. And Leorio asks Tonpa, why has Hisoka been allowed to re-enter the exam this year? And Tonpa explains that, there are new examiners each year. They get to decide what the exam will be and who can take it. So even someone like Hisoka, this madman of a fellow, he can be brought back to take part in an exam if an examiner wants that. And after warning the trio about Hisoka and all that, Tonpa decides, okay, let me welcome these three guys with some juice. So he gives Gon, Can, Leorio, Kurapika their cans. As this is going on, some people nearby, they see what's going on and they know what's going on. Tonpa is not the cool guy that he's trying to be. He's known as the rookie crusher, and Gon and his friends are his latest victims, being the newest rookies. The juice contains a powerful laxative, enough to incapacitate someone for 3 days. But to Tonpa's shock, he sees Gon take a sip, and he immediately spits out the juice because he doesn't like the taste, which is much to the surprise of Tonpa, because he was certain that the juice with the laxative should be tasteless, it should be odorless. But this kid, he doesn't like the taste. What's up with that? And Leorio and Kurapika, they dump their juice as well after seeing Gon react badly to it, and Tonpa doesn't believe this. And the chapter ends with him not understanding how this 12-year-old kid, he counted the strong laxative in the juice. And then chapter 6, the first phase begins, part 2. Now this chapter begins with Tonpa apologizing to Gon for the juice. But Gon is cool. He just tells Tonpa, my tongue is trained to detect anything harmful. So it's a good thing that I had the first taste. And for Tonpa, he realizes now that his usual tricks are not going to work this time, because the rookies who are taking part in the exam this year, they're a special bunch. We get some examples of the other applicants that Tonpa tried to trick earlier on, starting with applicant number 294, Hanzo. He's a ninja. He tells Tonpa that he wanted a hunter license so that he can track down an artifact known as the Hermit's Scroll, which is in a country that ordinary people cannot enter. So Tonpa, after talking to Hanzo a bit, becoming friendly with him, he offered that can of juice. But Hanzo, he got serious and he turned down the offer, telling Tonpa that ninja do not accept food or drink from other people. So that was a mission failed for Tonpa. The next attempt was on applicant number 187, this smartly dressed looking fellow named Nicholas, who's got his special portable computer. And when Tonpa had tried to trick him, Nicholas had looked up Tonpa by his computer, and he learned who Tonpa was, and he declined any of Tonpa's attempts to be friendly or the juice, anything else. Another mission failed. Attempt number 3, he avoided, because this was going to be on applicant number 301. This odd looking fellow who's got pins sticking out of his face, pins sticking out of his shoulders, and Tonpa just had one look at him and was like, nope, not a chance. And he went to try someone else. So you can't blame him. This guy looks absolutely ridiculous. If you've got a copy of volume 1, turn to chapter 6 and you just see this fellow. And the fourth attempt was on an applicant number 99, another boy about the same age as Gon. He's got a skateboard with him. This boy is named Killua. Make a note of that name, Killua. And not only did Killua drink one of Tonpa's juice cans, he drank 5 cans and was totally fine. And he tells Tonpa as he's walking away that no poison can kill him. The juice was fine. This is because Killua has strengthened his resistance. So he could down 5 cans of that laced juice without any problem. This is Killua, ladies and gentlemen. Introduction to one of the coolest characters in this series. Make a note of him. So we fast forward to the present. An alarm suddenly goes off and a new character appears. This mustached man who announces that the registration for the exam has ended and the exam now begins. And he signals for the examinees to follow him as he starts walking further into the tunnel, and explains that the exam is not for the weak, it's not for the unskilled. If you are not good enough, or if you're unlucky, it sucks to be you right now. There are now 404 applicants going into this exam. The one guy who's no longer taking part is that unfortunate fellow who lost both of his arms earlier. He's out. And we are introduced to this mustached man. He introduces himself as Satotsu, Satotz, or his Japanese name Satotsu. We'll go with that. And he starts, as he's walking, people have realized, wait a minute, why is the pace picking up? They realize this Satotsu guy, as he's walking, he's expanding the gap between himself and the group of examinees, and people are now starting to pick up the pace now. And Satotsu reveals that he is the examiner for the first phase of the exam, and he's their guide to the second phase. And now that the exam has begun, this is the first phase, which involves keeping up with Satotsu until they reach wherever they're going. And Leorio wonders if perhaps maybe this is an endurance run. But Kurapika thinks there could be more to this than just a test of endurance. There might be a psychological aspect to this, given that they don't know how far they're going or where they're going. Killua, having a skateboard, he just skates right past Kurapika and Leorio. And of course Leorio, he calls out Killua because he thinks, oh, you're cheating. Why are you on your skateboard? Everyone else is running. And Gon has to remind Leorio that Satotsu only said that they should follow him. He didn't say how they should follow him, just follow him. So Gon, he catches up to Killua, and the boys introduce themselves to each other, learning that they're almost 12. There's a joke in there because Leorio, he turns out, although he looks like he's in his 30s or maybe early 40s, he's not even 20 years old yet. You get a good look at Leorio. And so after Gon and Killua, they start talking to each other. Killua, he decides to get off his skateboard and he's now running with the rest of the group. And so time passes as this chapter goes on, and Kurapika thinks they've been running for about 3 hours, and probably they might have covered 40 kilometers by now. And maybe there are people who have fallen behind and have dropped off. And then we see Leorio, he's having a hard time keeping up because he wasn't expecting to be running this long. And seeing the group is way ahead of him, it makes him come to terms with how really lucky he is to have made it this far, but he is exhausted. And he starts thinking that, maybe in 3 years' time, he could be one of those lucky people who makes it. And, he just stops running. He's super exhausted at this point. And Gon, he looks back and he sees his friend, and he stops too. But Killua, he tells Gon, Leorio has probably failed because he stopped running. Just leave him be. And then all of a sudden, Leorio, he gets a second wind and he psychs himself up and he remembers why he wants to become a hunter. And he bursts forward with his new speed but as he runs forward, he has left behind a briefcase that he's been carrying. And Gon, he sees the briefcase, he grabs hold of it with his fishing rod. And seeing this, Killua thinks, oh, that's quite cool. I'd like to try your fishing rod sometime. And Gon says, you know what? I like your skateboard. And this is where these two young fellows become friends, very good friends. And as the chapter comes to an end, we learn that 60 kilometers have been passed so far, and nobody has dropped off yet. We get into chapter 7, respective reasons. And as the chapter begins, we are seeing Nicholas. He is the one who's struggling now. He's reached his limits, he's exhausted, despite being an ace in academics, an ace in sports. The idea of him being a loser is ridiculous. He's never been beaten until now. And as he's running, there's a group behind him. That group is the Amori brothers. They get to Nicholas and they start verbally bullying him, telling him, oh, you're no good, you're a failure, just drop off, you're a waste of time. And this gets to Nicholas, and it reaches the point where he stops running and he cannot continue. And this is over 6 hours into this first phase. 80 kilometers have been passed, and Nicholas, sadly, he's the first one to drop off. And we soon find out later on, like way ahead, that the Amori brothers had bullied him on purpose because Tonpa had paid them off. He had figured out Nicholas's weakness, and I guess also out of revenge for Nicholas refusing to take part in Tonpa's tricks earlier on. And the Amori brothers, they did his dirty work. And some of the other examinees, having seen what has happened, they realize, yeah, we need to stay sharp, because there are a lot of top quality rookies this year. And later on, the examinees, they reach a portion of the tunnel that has a long ascending staircase. And for Satotsu, he's still in good form, he's still power walking, no problem. He tells them it's time to increase the pace. And we see him power walking up those stairs. And Gareta, the huntsman, he comments that, yeah, this is the point where a lot of examinees are going to drop off. This is the point. And Leorio, we see Kurapika, they are still keeping up, trying to make their way on top of these, they're on the staircase. And Kurapika says to Leorio, you know, I'm not convinced that you want to become a hunter just because of money. There must be another reason. Because Kurapika has met people who are genuinely motivated by money, and none of them are as focused as Leorio. But Leorio, before he answers, Kurapika reveals that the Kuruta clan members who were killed by the Phantom Troop, they were targeted because of their scarlet eyes. When members of the Kuruta clan, when their emotions get high enough, their eyes turn scarlet. And if they were to die while in that state, their eyes remain scarlet. So this Phantom Troop, they plucked out the eyes of all the clan members that they killed. And Kurapika, he says, I want to get those eyes back. And becoming a hunter grants him access to places and information which can lead him to the Phantom Troop. And for Leorio, he thinks by now maybe those eyes have been sold. But for Kurapika, it's all the more reason why he wants to become a hunter. For Leorio, again, he maintains that he's only a hunter. He only wants to become a hunter for the money. Because as far as he's concerned, everything has a price. A person's life, their dreams, and so on. And this is when he brings up his late friend, who could have been saved if enough money had been available. Leorio explains that a surgery actually, could have saved his friend, but the price was really high for this procedure. So Leorio, being an ordinary guy, he thought maybe I should become a doctor, so that next time when he encounters someone who has the same disease as his late friend, he can cure them. And if it's a child, for example, he can then tell the child's parents they don't need to pay for saving their child. Not anymore, it's not a problem. But Leorio, having realized that becoming a doctor requires a lot of money, and that's his reason why he wants to become a hunter. And for Kurapika, this is a moment where, he understands Leorio a little bit more than before. Just to, bring them closer as his friends. So we reach the halfway point of the stairs, and we learn that 37 examinees have dropped off at this point. Gon and Kilo, they are keeping up with Satotsu. Funny enough, they are ahead of the group of examinees, no sign of exhaustion whatsoever. And this is when Gon, he asks Kilo, okay, why do you want to become a hunter? And Kilo explains, I'm not interested in being a hunter. I'm just in the exam because I heard that it's super tough. And so far, after everything that we've seen of the exam so far, Killua has found all of that to be very boring. Funny enough, everything so far, it's all boring to Killua. And for Gon, he just tells him, hey, I want to become a hunter because I'm chasing after my father. I want to find out where he is. And so Gon also talks about being raised by Aunt Mito and never seeing his father except in photos. And then he brings up the meeting with Kaito and learning from him about some of Jing's achievements, which include discovering the ruins of the Lurker civilization, establishing a breeding program for two-headed wolves, the excavation of the Congo gold vein, and putting an end to the Kute gang of thieves. Achievements like these would be enough to make Jing rise up the ranks to become a triple-star hunter, but he hasn't bothered to apply to become one because, oddly enough, a triple-star hunter is the highest hunter class, and there are less than 10 people in the world right now who are recognized as triple-star hunter, and yet Jing qualifies, but he is not interested in becoming one. And for Killua, this is impressive, and he thinks, this Jing guy is pretty cool. So fast forward now, the examinees can see what looks like an exit just up ahead, and sure enough, they get through and exit the tunnel and find themselves in a wide open area, which Satotsu identifies as the Milsea wetlands, also known as Swindler's Swamp. And he cautions the examinees that there are many dangerous creatures out here, the type of creatures who can deceive you and devour you, so the examinees stay vigilant and they follow Satotsu. And this is where chapter 7 ends. And we get to the final chapter, volume 1, chapter 8, The Other Enemy. And, the chapter begins, there's one last candidate who's trying to crawl out of the tunnel to join the rest of the examinees outside. But the tunnel's gate comes down, and that poor candidate is locked out. That's the end for him. So again, Satotsu reminds the examinees about how and why the creatures of the wetlands are dangerous. It's just part of the ecosystem here. So again, they should stay close to Satotsu. And this is when someone from behind the group shouts that Satotsu is lying. And, everyone turns around and they see this roughed up looking fellow coming out from just around the exit of the tunnel. This man, he claims to be the real examiner, while pointing out Satotsu to be an imposter. And this catches the examinees by surprise, and Ryohiro, he makes a little comment wondering, could Satotsu be an imposter? And this man who shows up, he shows his proof. What he's holding is a beat up, hairy looking creature, which is known as a man-faced ape. And this man reveals that these creatures, they love eating fresh human flesh. But because man-faced apes are physically weak, they disguise themselves, and they lead a group of humans into the wetlands, and then together with the other creatures of the wetlands, they capture the humans alive. And what a coincidence, there is a group of hunter examinees right here and now, and this man tells them that they are the targets. And before he can say anything else, this man is suddenly struck in the face by a number of playing cards. These playing cards are sharp enough to dig into the man's flesh, and they drop him dead on the spot. Satotsu is attacked as well by more cards, but he's quick enough to catch these cards which have been thrown at him. And we see who threw the cards. It's that man, Hisoka the magician, who has figured out what's going on here. The man-faced ape that we learned about earlier, it's lying on the ground next to the dead man. It suddenly wakes up and tries to flee, only to be taken down by more cards from Hisoka, these sharp-edged cards. And Hisoka declares Satotsu to be the real examiner, because hunters are requested actually by a judging committee to become examiners, and only a hunter would be skilled enough to stop an attack from Hisoka. And Satotsu, he takes this as a compliment and reveals that he is the real examiner, but he warns Hisoka that if he were to attack him again for whatever reason, he will be disqualified. But no problem for Hisoka, he just takes this in stride. And next thing you know, a flock of monster birds swoops in to devour the dead man, much to the shock of the candidates. They just gobble him up in moments. They fly off again, and Satotsu, he makes a little comment about what has just happened, saying that it was a clever move to sow some confusion among the candidates and lead them into taking a wrong path. Again, another method of whittling down the number of candidates, but they've seen a taste of what they have to deal with while they're out here. Stay vigilant, and they carry on to the second phase. More running through the wetlands, and at this point there are now 311 candidates who are remaining, and we see that Killua is withdrawn. They're still trying to keep up with Satotsu. The fog is now rolling in through the wetlands, and Killua, he decides, it might be a good idea to keep up with Satotsu and to create distance between them and the guy who's following the two boys, Hisoka. And Killua, he reveals that there's a reason why he could tell that Hisoka is behind them. It's because he can detect Hisoka's killing intent, to the point where Killua can smell it off of Hisoka. He's out for blood. And this is also because Killua says, I'm just like Hisoka. I can tell when someone's killing instinct is very high. So Gon and Killua, they decide to, they might as well get on ahead to where Satotsu is, as the fog is getting thicker. And in the next scene, we see a pair of examinees. They figure out, it might be, they can see like shadows of people ahead through the fog, and they decide, it might be a good idea to stick with that group of people ahead as the fog is getting thicker. Let's move on ahead. But all of a sudden they see one of those shadows lose their head, and next thing you know, a strawberry appears between these two examinees. This strawberry is one of several strawberries that are growing on the back of a beast known as a noggin lagging tortoise, and it appears in the fog, one of two of these giant tortoises. And the two shadows that the examinees had seen ahead were more examinees who've been caught by these tortoises. And we learned that these noggin lagging tortoises, they lure people in the fog with the strawberries that are growing on their back. They look like scarecrows on the back of these tortoises, except that the head is, instead of a head of straw, it's a strawberry head. So these tortoises, they lure people in the fog, and when they think, oh, there's a strawberry, gobbled up by these tortoises. And as other examinees are seeing what's going on with these tortoises, another group of examinees is eaten by another monster that appears, known as a frog in waiting. It's this frog which burrows in the ground, and it surfaces through the ground, capturing a group of more examinees. And at this point, this is where we see more creatures of the wetlands appear, and we are introduced to them, such as the ruse raven. In Japanese, it's the horagarasu. What it does is it tricks people with its voice, giving them directions to what they think is a safe spot, but it turns out to be a trap. And then we are introduced to the claymore mushroom, the jiraitake, which translates to landmine mushroom. It's a purple-capped mushroom which explodes when stepped upon, and then it spreads its spores on any immobilized prey. There's also the hypnosis butterfly, the Simon Cho, which flies in a particular pattern that puts its prey to sleep, and this prey becomes food for the butterfly's larvae. And as all this is going on, Leorio, he can hear all the screams around him, and he believes that they are now being picked off. And he remembers that all his weapons are in his briefcase that he left behind. And he's unaware that, oh, the briefcase has been picked up by Gon, so for the time being, Gon is not Gon, but Leorio, he's panicking now because he doesn't have his weapons. And now with everything that's going on, he's now worried. And then we move on to Gon. He finally catches up to his friends, Leorio and Kurapika, and Killua is there as well, and he reminds Gon that this is not the time to space out. They have to focus now. And we see some other unfortunate candidates, examinees, they're attacked by playing cards, including Leorio and Kurapika, but they're only injured, they're not killed. And Gon is with them now, and they turn around and they see Hisoka making his way through the fog, and Leorio is asking him, why are you attacking us? What are you doing? And the chapter ends with Hisoka simply telling them, I've decided to play Examiner. And this is where volume 1 ends. Started out in a swamp and ends in a swamp with Hisoka going after Gon and his friends. So that was volume 1 of Hunter x Hunter. And I think as a starter, I think it wasn't a bad start. It was a nice start. We got our main character. We got introduced to his supporting cast, Leorio, Kurapika, met Killua, we met the strange Hisoka as well. So I think these 8 chapters should give you a good idea of what to expect in this manga. And also you get a chance to decide, okay, do I want to come back for chapter 9 for volume 2? Is this for me? And I think, as for someone who likes action series, this is something worth checking out, and considered to be one of the best mangas of all time, one of the highest selling mangas ever created. And it's unfortunate that it's been on hiatus, on and off, because of health issues. But I think if it hadn't been played with hiatuses, it would still be running to this day. I think it would still be going on, maybe even now, right into, like over 1,000 chapters and so on. So we have reached the end of this first episode of the MultiMangaverse. I'm hoping as the series goes on, this will be the portion where I'll read your feedback in the description, the show notes, wherever you downloaded this or wherever you're listening to this. You'll find an email address. It's multimangaverse@xmail.net. This is where you can send in your feedback. If you have any bits of trivia, any notes, any stories that you'd like to share as a fan of Hunter x Hunter, or any of the other manga that we'll be covering in this series, feel free to send in all that. Just make sure to include your name and wherever you're emailing from, so that at least I know who sent which piece of feedback, and when I read your feedback, I can identify you and give you credit. Also in the description, you'll find support links. If you are interested in supporting this series, you'll find a Patreon link. There's a PayPal link as well. And there's another email address. That's my direct contact email address if you'd like to support by other means. If you don't prefer PayPal or Patreon, you'd like to suggest alternative methods of supporting, contact me by email and maybe we can arrange something. So next episode, we take a look at volume 2 of Hunter x Hunter, so please join me for that one. Thank you for listening to the first episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and looking forward to talking to you again in the next episode. Bye for now.